Thank you. Yes. Every person has many, many personalities and many aspects. So we could start from the professional one. I'm a professor of computer science at the University of Maryland, where I've been for more than 40 years, but now emeritus professor. So I have the freedom to do and write what I want and spend my time in good ways. So I'm very proud of my career, especially proud of my students and what they have accomplished and what I've learned from my students. So there's many nice stories to tell about my life at the University of Maryland and about my professional career, which started from the side of being a physicist, a mathematician, to becoming a database expert. And then I found my true calling to promote the idea of human-computer interaction, as it's become known, to found the initial conference in 1982 in Gaithersburg, Maryland, to write a book in 1980 called Software Psychology. And my book, Designing the User Interface, began in 1986. So it's gone a long way from there, and I'm proud of my accomplishments, and we can talk about that as well. But of course, there's more to me than that. I'm a proud father of two wonderful daughters, and who have children of their own by now, and I've had the satisfaction of seeing them grow up healthy and smart and capable, and to spend time with them. So that's important to me. I have a dear sister. I have an interesting family and lots of history to tell you about if you wish. But you know, my parents came to the U.S. in 1940 from Europe, just as the war was beginning, and I grew up in New York and Manhattan. It was a wonderful experience, rich with cultural activities and so on. We didn't have a lot of money, but we had a very interesting life. My parents were journalists. My uncle was the legendary world famous photographer David Seymour, which influenced me greatly. And so I grew up in that very interesting place and time, and went to the public schools through high school, and then to the city college, which was free. And I had all the way to a PhD in 1973 at State University of New York at Stony Brook. I was the first PhD in computer science. So that was a distinction that I value. And from there, I went for 3 years to Indiana University, and then came to University of Maryland in 1976, and have been there through my career. And I've had a lot of satisfactions in my life. I've been healthy, fortunate in many ways, and maybe that's a good summary. I feel fortunate, proud of what I've done, and happy with my wife, my children, my sister, my family, and what I've done. Thank you. Well, the field of computer science didn't exist when I started. I was excited about computers when I finished high school at the Bronx High School of Science, a famous high school in New York. And so I took a summer course in computing and was hooked. And as an undergraduate, I became active as a programmer for a group of physicists, and that made it fascinating to me. And I was working on programs on physics, particle physics at Brookhaven National Laboratory, and writing programs to reconstruct the tracks of the particles, 3 dimensions. And going to classes got in the way of my education. I was learning a huge amount. I was quite excited by it. And I was fortunate to have a wonderful professor, before there was computer science, but Richard Hamming, the famous Hamming codes, Nobel Turing winner, and he was my professor for 2 semesters, and he was a legendary character himself and a great inspiration. And then I began teaching and learning, and got my PhD. So yes, I mean, I would say later in life, I became absorbed by the idea of an academic career.
Are you happy with what you are doing now?
Yeah, right. I'm having interesting exchanges with people like you and others about this book on human-centered AI, and that's become an important theme for me after working on design of user interfaces, on touchscreens. I'm the creator of the clickable highlighted link for the web and for the small touchscreen keyboards on your telephone, on your mobile device. And other ideas, but I worked mainly on visualization, and those gave me many satisfactions to create new disciplines like human-computer interaction and information visualization to contribute to them. There are many other
Yes.
important contributors, but I felt this was something new and different, that I had a special distinction because of my interest in photography and visual arts, my interest in psychology, my background in humanities, my broad reading, my cultural growing up in New York, very rich experiences. And so I felt I could make some important contributions here. And so it has gone. And now I've turned to a topic that I've always dealt with, which was the questions about artificial intelligence and what should that be. And I've always had interesting and challenging exchanges with those who believe that the future was about AI and about machines being intelligent and social robots and autonomous intelligent agents. And famous debate in 1997 with Patty Moss about this direct manipulation versus artificial agents, so intelligent agents.
Yes.
I think a central part of my story is the notion of direct manipulation, a term I coined in 1981, 1982, and published 2 papers on this topic, which became very influential. And it was a matter of describing what I saw as the emerging new designs that were enormously favored by their users. There were video games, there was air traffic control, there were computer simulations, there was graphical user interfaces. And there were many different ideas, not all of them successful, but I came to, because I used so many of them, I came to understand the common patterns in them, and I wrote the notions of direct manipulation, that visual representation of the objects on the screen. Again, my visual orientation from photography led me down this path, and so the idea of visual representations of the world of action, the objects and the action. So the objects might be files in a graphical user interface. The action to delete would be represented by a trash can. Drag the file to the trash can, you hear the sound of it falling in, and it disappears from the screen. So those actions are rapid, incremental, and reversible. You can drag a little, you can move it around, go back if you want to. They're rapid, incremental, they're reversible, and you drop in the trash can. And even the trash can action is reversible because you can open the trash can and take things out of the trash can.
Yes.
So that notion for graphical user interfaces and video games and air traffic control led me to think again more visually, and that the objects on the screen were the active objects. So even the words in textual documents seem to me should be made active, and that you could click on them. That certain words are highlighted and you click on them and go somewhere. And that was the notion of hypertext, which of course Vannevar Bush had described in his Memex system in 1945, that Doug Engelbart had shown in his demo in 1968, but that by 1984 I refined to make it words embedded in paragraphs that were highlighted. You click on them and you go to another article. And that notion was aligned with Ted Nelson's beliefs in hypertext. And so our approach to it was built into a series of prototypes. And then for the ACM, a product was hypertext, about hypertext, the 1987 issue of the 1987 conference that was papers published in 1988 in the communication of the ACM. We made the electronic disc version of that. Tim Berners-Lee saw that, cited it in his Spring '89 manifesto for the web, and that little idea became embedded in the web and helped to make it a success. And I might note that there were many other web-based ideas like Gopher, which did not have this idea in them. And I do believe that that visual representation that made it clickable. The light blue highlights were also from our work. We made a dozen studies about hypertext usage in systems in 1984, 5, and 6, and published those papers. And bright red highlights were easier to spot, but when users would then not read the text as well and would not remember the text. So the light blue was a good compromise. They were visible, but they were not as distracting from reading the text. So that little idea became embedded. We called them embedded menus, actually, but Tim Berners-Lee called them hot links and hot spots. Okay. Yes. So that was a better name, and he put them to work in the web, which has made part of its great success story. So I've seen how these ideas travel. Tim Berners-Lee was a colleague, and we met at conferences, and he's done an enormous, step forward to make the web such a success. And so I'm pleased to have been part of those events. I should say Steve Jobs visited our lab in October 1988, and we showed him our developments and a lot of the touch screens, and that's how I became involved with Apple for 5 years as a consultant, and so I can see how these things travel. But those were memorable experiences and great satisfaction to see how our work became part of important systems. I chose to go along with the term human-centered AI, which were beginning to be used by many people, but some use the term human-centric AI or human AI interaction or responsible AI or ethical AI. There were many, many different terms that continue to be propagated, but it seemed to me human-centered AI was a good phrase. It gave weight and importance to AI as the fundamental technology built into it, and then it brought into the notions of human-computer interaction, HCI, and an expansion of AI to include the notions of human-computer interaction. But what do we mean by human-centered? There are different interpretations. Not everyone agrees with me. Some people think human-centered might mean social robots, building machines to be like people. But no, I strongly reject that. There's very little evidence that social robots will be a success in the future.
According to Reuters, SoftBank, the Japanese telecommunications behemoth that has been a major player in the robotics business in recent years, is planning to stop producing Pepper, the humanoid robot.
Those ideas have been around for 200 years. They keep reoccurring, but each time they become only the museum pieces of the next century. And I think that will prevail as well. There are those who believe that this time is different and that the robots will become more like humans. And there are many proponents of that view, but I don't hold that view. Okay. So for me, human-centered means building systems which enable people to accomplish their work. They give them a graceful, seamless interaction with their technologies, like a digital camera. You lift the camera, you point it, you turn it, you zoom the image, and then you click when you're ready. It's all quite natural, direct manipulation. You're directly manipulating. You see immediate feedback, and then when you are ready, you click the decisive moment, and you make the photo. It's your photograph. I want AI technologies to be used where they will support what the human wants. So that digital camera has many AI components, from setting the lighting aperture, the speed for the image capture, reducing hand jitter. There's many places where AI can be reliably, safely, and trustworthy in their design. But the point is, the human should be in control. Should have a sense that this is their project, their photo, not that the machine did it, but that they did it. So I'm quite strong in my believing that what the goal of good design is to support human self-efficacy, creativity, responsibility, and also the social connections that people have. that is the goal. Now, there's different meanings of what degree of control. There are applications where you have to be very rapid. For example, airbag deployment in automobiles. In 200 milliseconds, the airbag has to go off. And so that pattern recognition program, possibly based on AI, but not necessarily, but has to operate automatically and rapidly. Similarly, a pacemaker embedded in your chest will continue to operate. And so you have extreme cases like those. And for those, you want to design them in a very much more careful way and test them thoroughly. And then important thing is to monitor their behavior over time. And that's the important thing. Now, the designer needs to have the humility to understand that their system may be failing, may go wrong. And so important things are to build in audit trails and product logs, whatever you'd like to call them, to record what's happening, to collect the aggregate data over time and to transmit it. So early systems like the airbags did not do that. And so what happened, although airbags saved about 2,500 lives a year in the US, they would kill 100 or 200 a year of children or elders because of inadvertent airbag deployments. And this was not known for quite a long time till the hospital emergency rooms began to identify this pattern. And so it's important to have a tracking facility for every technology to be able to monitor what's happening as much as possible. And so where you have increased automation, you need increased auditing, tracking, aggregate, and control. So you have also, I mean, there are different perceptions of things. So the Mars rovers, impressive technology, NASA builds them. They have a certain degree of autonomy. They can avoid objects and precipices, but they're basically teleoperated from, there's a whole control room of NASA operators who operate the Mars rovers. Similarly, surgical robots are teleoperated devices, one after another. Drones, unmanned drones is the phrase, but they're not, they may be unmanned, but they're remotely piloted vehicles, as the larger drones are, or even the personal drones that you buy for $100 are operated by a game-like control panel. And yes, they will have automated capabilities to hover over a certain point, to orbit in a circle, and to return to base. So those can be automated because they can be reliable, they're clear, they're safe. The user is in control. And so I think we have to understand what design strategies to be using. And I think the strategies that give users control seem to be the ones that succeed commercially, professionally, and that remain strong. So we need to find that approach. And the current AI literature is moving that direction, I would say, but much of the AI background is towards the idea of autonomous systems, which I think that word is pernicious. I think it's dangerous, sometimes deadly. The notion of saying autonomous systems can be deadly. The recent case of the crashes of two Boeing 737 MAX aircraft shows the dangers of autonomy, that the Boeing had built in a system to control the plane that was not even known to the pilots. So when that system went badly in these two crashes, the pilots did not know what was happening. They did not have a display. They did not have a control panel to let them operate it. They could have turned it off, but they just didn't think of it. It wasn't part of their thinking, training, and planning. And so there are many causes of that Boeing 737 tragedy, but I will focus on the idea that autonomy as a design goal was in the minds of the designers. Now, it's not especially AI, but it was an autonomous design. So I think we see a shift of language. People are now talking about shared autonomy, parallel autonomy, supervised autonomy. But I would like to remove the word autonomy entirely and talk about human control.
Last night around 11:25 p.m., our office received a call regarding a one vehicle accident up near the Woodlands. Upon responding deputies found a vehicle fully engulfed in flames that had appeared to have struck a tree. Preliminary investigation revealed the vehicle was traveling westbound on the roadway. Came to a slight curve, and for whatever reason did not negotiate the curve. We did determine that there was 2 victims inside the vehicle. There was no victims inside of the front driver's seat. There was someone in the front passenger seat, and a victim was in the back seat of the vehicle.
I hadn't heard about that one, but yes, these things are happening.
Yes.
So, I thought there were just a few deaths from Tesla cars. 2016 one is the famous one that the National Transportation Safety Board investigated. That 60-page report's very readable, and you might want to take a look at it and its recommendations. But I thought there were a small number, under 10 deaths in Tesla. All right, but there's a website called Tesla Deaths, and I was surprised to find that there are 169 deaths reported from Tesla cars. Now, not all of these are due to the automation system. There's all kinds of things, and the data is incomplete. We don't have a good record. Tesla may have a good record, but we don't know publicly what happened. So the basic principle of reporting of failures, of incidents, is what we need to have in every case to have the proper rapid feedback to improve performance. And so I'm a great fan of these systems, notably, let's say, the AI incidents database that Sean McGregory has put up at the Partnership on AI website, which has more than 1,000 incidents of AI failures. And that's important to understand, that this technology has many dangers, and its advocates, its strongest advocates, are just not accepting that pattern of failures. But they should, because it will enable rapid improvement, which is what I propose. So one of the human-centered 15 recommendations is to have audit trails to be able to track this. The flight data recorders on aircraft were an early, very successful example. And we know that this idea of reporting systems, in the US, the Food and Drug Administration has a adverse event reporting system for medications. And they get thousands of reports from pharmacists and nurses and doctors and patients that tell them about the inadvertent, unexpected side effects of medications. So that's how we learn, because we have a sense of humility that our technologies can go wrong, and they may bring many benefits, but if we can clean up the problems sooner, then we will make safer, better, and more trustworthy systems. Yes. We have many heroes. I would say my most interesting hero is Leonardo Da Vinci, who successfully combined art and science, engineering and design to make beautiful paintings and sculptures, as well as creative and innovative inventions and beautiful manuscripts. Do what you like to do with the people you love to be with. And I just was talking to a young man who's has 3 job offers and 3 good job offers and trying to decide where to go. My advice to him was, where are the people you would like to have lunch with? That's a tough one. I was not fortunate to have good advisors and mentors in my career. And so I would say I was more challenged than advised, that people were unsupportive of the new directions. They wondered about my, taking on this idea of the psychological studies of human-computer interaction. I do, very carefully. I mean, I think it's really important to manage your time. I work closely with schedules. When I say I'm going to finish a book on April 1st, I finish a book on April 1st. And I finish it even earlier because I know that finishing early gives me a chance to improve it and ask other people for feedback and review. And so that's important. I would like to see peace in the world. Can I ask for peace in the world? I like all my children. I would say my book, Leonardo's Laptop, was the most interesting one for me to write and received nice recognition. And yes, so Leonardo's Laptop.
Right.
Yes, that's right. I thought Leonardo was a good inspiration. Each chapter begins with a little story about Leonardo and a fantasy about how he might use a laptop. I found an answer. Whether it's correct or not, we won't know, but it was a good way to think about new ideas. What is my dream? What is my dream? Well, I would like to see, after world peace is achieved, we need to work on a sustainable planet and keeping our beautiful world safe for future generations. Sometimes I should push harder to promote an idea. I tend to be sympathetic to many opinions, and there are times where I think it's important to stand up for what you believe in. That's too easy. I mean, obviously, people are important in my life in many ways. So the words are charming, caring, thoughtful, helpful, engaging, good-spirited. I start the day with yoga, at least 30 minutes of yoga in the mornings, and do my work. I like the morning hours. The sunshine is bright and nice days. Go for a walk, do 10,000 steps, maybe go bicycling. I like to go skiing. This is because of the COVID pandemic, this is the first year since I was 15 years old I didn't go skiing. So I hope next year I'll be able to go skiing again. So those are things I enjoy. Well, my life after being a professor, teaching courses, working with students, speaking on committees, gives me a great deal of freedom. And I've been thoughtful about how to use that freedom, how to use my time in a good way. And I enjoy working with other people and exchanges. And I've chosen to focus on the human-centered AI topic during the past year of COVID, when we were kept home a great deal of time. I wrote this book on human-centered AI, which is now in production with Oxford University Press and should be published January 2022. So my hopes, it's a different kind of research. I'm very consciously working on how to change people's minds and how to promote this new idea. And so and I'm not working with students. I miss working with students. I miss the idea of working on a design of a new interface and information visualization to support a project. Those were great fun times. But at this stage of my life, I have opportunities that I didn't when I was younger. And so now I can take on bigger topics. I'm pleased that I'm a member of the National Academy of Engineering in the US, and so it gives me access to certain opportunities and invitations of many kinds. So I want to use that time in a good way. But there's life beyond work, and being with family and getting out in the beautiful world outside is important to me too. I spent about 80% of my academic time in the past 2 years studying and reading papers. I'm an active, prolific reader. I'm frequently downloading papers, and there's more than 1,000 papers in the folders I've used to write the book on human-centered AI. And so, yes, I find that interesting. And one of the pleasures of this stage of life is when I read a paper that I find interesting or annoying, I will write a lengthy commentary to the authors, and I will ask them questions and I will engage with them. And that's been very satisfying to be able to do that and spend the time on interacting with people and asking questions directly. Yes, I think your point is we don't always, our predictions of the future don't always turn out the way we think they will. And yes, early on, I was a great promoter of social media and ideas of Facebook, Twitter, and other social connection opportunities, and studied Wikipedia, studied blog systems, YouTubes, and developed a tool called NodeXL with many others. Mark Smith continues to lead that, but NodeXL is a network analysis tool for social media. And we believed around 2008, 9, 10, that social media would give people at the margins a voice. And that seemed like a very good and democratic possibility. And it's opened up the possibilities for many people. And that has happened. What we did not predict is that it would also, and maybe even more forcefully, open the possibilities for people with hate speech and bullying and lying and misinformation and disinformation. And I would say we did not, maybe there's your question about regret. We did not understand that malicious actors in the form of terrorists and criminals and extremist groups would adopt these technologies. And we should have been able to do that. And I hope the future, future developers of technology will learn to think more about the unexpected uses of their technology and the dangerous and adversarial ones. I think that's really the possibility. Now, you asked specifically about social robots. No, I don't think that social robots will succeed. I mean, Google, not every technology succeeds. Google Glasses didn't succeed. A lot of technologies disappeared, and some will linger on. Social robots have so many believers that it will continue for a long time, as it has for 200 years. I mean, or more. I mean, in the robots of the 1700s were different from our robots, but the notion of creating a human-like device, a doll, a mannequin that was active, has always been around, and it will continue to be around. It won't go away. It'll be ever more sophisticated in its developments, but I see no widespread commercial usage because there are better ways to design things. It's suboptimal to design a robot that's like a person. Why would I possibly do that? Early robots, manufactured robots, had arms that rotated 270 degrees, 15-inch long, and could lift about 20 or 30 pounds. But those were not very useful in industrial manufacturing. So suction suction cups that would lift products carefully, arms that would lift 100 or 1,000 pounds and could move over larger distances. That's what became important in flexible manufacturing systems. And so I know, unless you could tell me, I know no examples of successful robots that are built based on human-like forms of walking on two legs and having arms and face and so on. They're wonderful pieces of theater. They're fun. I like them, but I don't think they are good design goals. Well, they will continue to be shown in Hollywood films. Hero will continue to have an audience, and it's great theater. It's great fun. I enjoy it. I just, think it's does not provide a model for success. I mean, you have to ask, why do you think it will be successful when previous attempts like that have not been successful? Honda Asimo, for 18 years, they tried to make a robot in human form, and it finally closed down. So it's, you'll see this great enthusiasm. The journalists love this. You love it. Many people love it. I think it's fun, but I do also find it annoying, and it's not a good way to design useful tools.
For me, I want to understand what's happening. That's all. I'm not like for or against. I just want to see what's happening.
Sure, me too. And David Hanson's Sophia is another example of a humanoid robot. It even got citizenship in Saudi Arabia and appears on television.
Exactly.
It's fun. It's fun. It's theater. It's puppets. But don't think we will be using them. I don't think we'll have them around our home. I may be wrong, but my advice to those who are designing technologies to be useful, to be widely used, I think would do well to understand what is needed and what's useful. And there's lots of evidence and lots of people who speak out and agree with me, but they don't have, it's not compelling. It's not because it's rarely a good strategy to be against something. And I've come to learn that. David Woods of Ohio State gave me a very nice advice. Here's a good example. Early on, I was writing against these technologies, and he said, don't do this. He said, don't do this. This is not going to work. He said, social robots are zombies. They're zombies. You cannot kill them. You don't waste your effort shooting them. There's no silver bullets. There's no special golden daggers that will kill this idea. They will go on. And you should let them be. And you show the path forward to something that really is even better. And that's, I think, the industrial robots, the surgical robots, the Mars rovers, the drone, human-controlled airplanes, one after another, those technologies become hugely successful. The 2 million apps in the Apple iStore are not social. They're based on your taking photographs, navigation tools. They're tools that let you do what you want, that make you more powerful. They're not powerful in themselves, except they make you more powerful. I think skillful writers have created imagination of some fantastic futures and coupled it with a fear that these could be out of control and take over. And so that's the Hollywood scenarios of Terminator and other Matrix, that these become dominant technologies. And yes, I think that's kind of makes for great drama and makes for great journalism. They're all about tension and things that you should worry about. And the more commercial developments are not so exciting. They provide a service. They're a baby monitor. They're a doorbell controller. They're a thermostat that works better. These are important. They change. They make people's lives better. But there's not a drama in them because they're limited. They're under human control. We know what they're going to do. They're predictable. They're comprehensible. They're controllable. We will use them. And I choose the path to support these ideas of things that will be useful, that will serve human needs. My goal is to make people's lives better and to give them greater control over their own world, in medical care, in their own lives, in their communication with family and friends, in their homes, in their personal health and well-being. all these tools are wonderful ways that life gets improved by many, many people. For my yoga in the morning, I have an app which I use, a wonderful one I'm very happy to recommend, called Down Dog Yoga. Brilliantly designed. I've been in touch with them and I've written about it in the book because it's the kind of thoughtful design that gives people choices of what kind of yoga, what speed, how many minutes, when they will do it. And it presents it in a very good way. And I've been doing this for more than 4 years now, most days. And so it's a technology which has made my life better. I stand better, I walk better, I sleep better. My strength is greater, my flexibility is greater. And so those are ways that this technology has helped make my life better. But you won't see too many news stories about this. It's not exciting, but it does provide meaningful benefits to people's lives. That's what I'm more interested to do. I'm really not interested to go after that. I mean, many people have talked about that, but I'm not interested to condemn AI. AI can be put to work in good ways. I'm interested to see it put to work in good ways. And my approach to that is a human-centered approach, to use the methods of human-computer interaction, to study user needs, to observe user behaviors, to build prototypes, to see how people use the technologies, where they succeed, where they fail, and to refine them in a steady, continuous way. And so I'm interested to see how we can make life better for people, to improve their health care, their mental state, their relationships with people, how to give them satisfaction and joy, how to enable them to go hiking safely and find the places they want to go for a walk in nature, and to take care of all those good things in life. Those are the rich things. There is evil in the world. Simple rule for defeating evil and malicious actors, terrorists, political oppressors, violent criminals, and the gun-inspired killings of people that are so prominent in the U.S. these days. Exactly. So I would like to control the technologies as best we can, but I know of no guarantee. I think if we work together and do our best to anticipate negatives and limit them, we will have a better time. We'll not have a perfect time.
Yes.
But we will have a better time. So Buckminster Fuller is another hero of mine, and his comprehensive anticipatory design science. Comprehensive anticipatory design science, to me, is a good model of what I think should be. We should think more carefully about how our technology will be used and misused. And we should think about adversarial attacks as well as the positive uses.